And welcome again to Bisons, Cabbages, and Honor, the podcast where we review every single episode of Avatar the Last Airbender. I am your host, Matthew, and as always, my co-host, the wonderful Aubrey.
Yay, that's me!
Who's wanted throughout the Earth Kingdom for unspecific crimes.
This is very true.
Yes. So today is the 7th episode of the podcast, and fittingly, that means we will be reviewing the 7th episode of the show. So we don't really have any housekeeping things to get through this week, so we're gonna get right into things. Is it the 6th episode?
It's the 6th episode.
Oh, I've been in a time vortex. I've come from the future. 6th episode. Anyway, thank you, Aubrey. This is why you're here.
To correct you all the time, day.
It's a great dynamic. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So without much ado, we're going to get into it. So, as previously mentioned, this is episode 6, which is entitled Imprisoned. Ooh. So, I'm going to be handling the episode summary this week, and as much as I would like to keep it concise, a lot happens in this episode. I'm going to try and go through it as quickly as I can so we can get to the talky bits. But here we go.
Talky bits.
I just also wanted to note the episode starts with some lovely music that I'm not sure we've heard before. All right, the gang has made camp somewhere in a forest, a bit more inland than I think we're used to. And while looking for food and despairing around the fact they don't have much food, they hear some noises, some loud sounds, and go off to investigate. They spy a young man who appears to be earthbending. But when they, try and talk to him, he gets quite startled and runs off, and even tries to dissuade them from following by earthbending some rocks in their way. They go off in the direction he went, they find a village, and while walking around the village, they manage to find the young man again, and discover the reason he was out in the woods earthbending by himself is that this village is under Fire Nation occupation, and thus earthbending has been banned. The young man, Haru, and Katara sort of have a chance to bond, where they kind of discuss the shared trauma that the Fire Nation has inflicted on them, because Haru's father was arrested and taken away for earthbending, and Katara reveals that when she was quite young, her mother was taken away by the Fire Nation, and all that she has left to remember her of is a necklace that she wears around her neck. While they're out bonding, they come across a old man who has become trapped by a collapsing mine, and to save his life, Haru is forced to earthbend. This unfortunately turns out to be a poor decision in the long run, because the old man, for reasons that are never explained, turns Haru into the Fire Nation authorities. Katara is determined to rescue Haru and possibly the other earthbenders, so with a little bit of kooky scheming, she, Aang, and Sokka managed to convince some rather dumb Fire Nation guards that Katara is an earthbender, and so she's taken off to wherever Haru was taken, which turns out to be a oil platform of sorts, prison run by George Takei. It's true.
Oh my.
And despite Katara finding Haru and Haru's father in pretty quick order on the prison platform, she can't quite convince them to rise up, because there's no earth around. They feel kind of helpless. During the night, Aang and Sokka try to convince her, you've done the best you can, but we need to get out of here. She refuses, and they hatch a scheme where they're going to use the coal on the platform to be used as weapons by the earthbenders. This manages to succeed, and thanks to another inspiring speech by Katara, they managed to rally the earthbenders to revolt, who used the coal to beat the snot out of their Fire Nation guards. And it ends with the gang heading off, feeling like they've actually accomplished something. And that is pretty much the episode.
You forgot one moment with the necklace that was lost.
Oh, wait, yes, you're right. At the very end of the episode, Katara realizes that somehow in all the rebelling, she lost her necklace. And lo and behold, we go back to the platform, and who finds it there? But Fire Prince Zuko.
Da-da-da.
Who says nothing and looks on menacingly.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Menacing as Zuko can be.
He's a teenage boy.
Yeah.
He can only menace so much.
Yes. Oh, and as we move into just the general discussion, one negative point I have to bring up right away.
Oh.
There was no Iroh in this episode at all.
Sacre bleu! How awful.
It was terrible. Anyway.
That's okay. We can't always have Iroh.
But couldn't we? Couldn't we, Aubrey?
That's true.
Couldn't it be the Iroh show?
I would love to watch the Iroh show, just his adventures throughout his life.
Be a lot of tea drinking.
Oh my gosh. And dragons.
And making tea. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Aubrey, what were your highlights for the episode?
Okay, so Haru is introduced, and I realized he's probably one of the most boring characters ever introduced to the series.
He is pretty bland. I mean, he exists really just as sort of a vehicle for the plot.
Yeah, and that rarely happens in this show, where a character is specifically there as just a plot device. Normally there's character to them. Even like George Takei's character had more personality.
Wow, that's because he was so kind of eccentric.
And he was in it for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. I love, also this is, I suppose, the first instance of kind of a, I want to say celebrity voice actor showing up in the show.
Oh, yes.
We have a few as the series goes on. But
Oh, that lovely scene with the whole, was it a sky bison or a sky buffalo?
is there a difference? I'll be the one who determines what difference it is and throws the guy off the ship.
Tell the captain that
I want the whole place searched. What was the captain you threw off? We'll wake someone else up.
Yeah, that seems like a George Takei character.
Yes. It was a lot of fun.
One thing I really liked about this episode, and that's because I like earthbending on a visual level in general, just the earthbending choreography. Oh gosh. Just so you guys know, earthbending is based on a Southern Chinese martial arts style called Hung Ga, which focuses on deep low stances and strong hand techniques. And I don't know why, it's just so beautiful to watch because they're just sort of strong movements that's just rooted to the ground, which makes sense because it's earthbending.
Nice low center of gravity. Makes them hard to move.
Yeah, you can't topple them. They're earthbenders.
Now, am I correct in assuming this is actually our first look at earthbending in the entire show?
I think so. There
was no earthbending on Kyoshi Island. They were all just a bunch of normies.
King Boomy.
Oh wait, yes. Oh, I completely forgot about Boomy. Oh, I'm an idiot. Wow.
To be fair, King Boomy is a king. Of course, he'd be.
His personality overshadowed the episode. Oh, I'm such an idiot.
But this is a good example. This is the first example of regular people, of civilians,
I suppose,
earthbending.
Well, no, there were the guards at Omashu.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
I bet I said that in the episode with Boomy. This is our first time seeing earthbending. What is wrong? Oh,
don't worry about it, good sir.
I will worry about it. We're doing the episode over again.
No, that's fine. It's just this is the first time they really showcase what it can do. Besides just opening doors and throwing rocks at the Avatar.
Now, reminding that, hey, coal is a rock. Mm-hmm. It is earth.
Oh, and notice for future references that they mention that earthbenders cannot bend metal. Dun, dun, dun.
Rules exist to be broken. Next, you'll be telling me you can't bend the water outside of or inside the human body. Maybe,
spoilers, maybe, who knows?
Another one thing I wanted to bring up, and we sort of mentioned it already with George Takei's character, the humor in this episode is pretty good without being, like, excessively slapsticky.
It's pretty spot on.
Like, that lemur is earthbending. No, you idiot, it's the girl. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, with the whole vent system. That was pretty great when Sokka was like, hey, we're going to make airbending look like earthbending.
Yeah, which really doesn't make any sense either. Like, how is air lifting a rock the size of a human child, practically? Like, that must be some wind. And
then I like how they made a callback to that, where they were like, oh, we're going to do that trick that we did before and do it here. Dun, dun, dun.
When did they do it the first time?
The first time with the rock, when they were tricking the guards.
Yeah.
And then the second time when they did the vent trick on the...
Oh, the vents. I'm sorry, I thought you meant just levitating rocks.
Nah, like the vent trick. Yes.
A lot of vent thinking. Speaking of the platform, I like the fact that Katara's kind of inspirational speeches, while kind of, cheesy, just in their raw, hope and stuff, they cannot break your spirit, they didn't really seem that cliched to me. There's an earnestness about them that is kind of endearing.
Yeah, that's what Katara is. She's essentially the personification of hope in the show.
Yeah, and optimism.
I like it.
Yeah.
This poor cynic loves Katara for some reason.
Also, you gotta love the fact that it took a couple times. Like, it just wasn't, she gives one speech and everyone's inspired. They're like, no, our spirits have been kind of crushed.
I did like that. Originally, when I first watched that, I'm like, what? Why didn't they stand up? But watching it again, I'm like, you know what? That's kind of, they needed to build that up. Yeah. The fact that their spirits were broken.
Especially since the second time, it sort of works because she's literally done something tangible to make a difference. Like, here's some coal, you now have ammunition to use, rather than just, we need to rise up. Yeah, but what's different now that you're here? I mean... Yeah. So actions can speak louder than words.
That earth bending was so nice to look at. Especially that when they got together in a group and they were just like, fall, punch, punching with rocks.
Don't drop me, I can't swim. Don't worry, I hear cowards float.
Oh, Tyro. I like Tyro.
I forgot his name. Good job.
More so than his son, who...
Also, I think I recognize the voice actor of Tyro. He's been in a lot of things, but I don't know his name. Oh, he's a very common, animation voice actor.
He does sound familiar. We may have to look this up.
Yeah. A little homework for next time.
Oh, it turns out, and I learned this from word of mouth from my friend, but Haru is a playable character in the Avatar video game, and it's like, why?
I actually know nothing about the Avatar video games other than the fact that there was a Korra game that wasn't very good.
I imagine it wouldn't be... It seems like the Avatar games have not been
which is
very good.
Which is very strange because it almost is a perfect setup for kind of cool video game mechanics.
Right? It's a simple magic system. And you could just create your own character and be like...
With a good physics engine, there's a lot of possibilities. Like being able to earthbend, being able to waterbend. You could do a lot with that.
I feel a good game that would be similar to what I'm thinking a good Avatar game would be like would be Jade Empire. Where they take a bunch of martial arts and they add a little bit of magic to it. And it's just kick-ass.
Jade Empire is possibly the one BioWare franchise I've not even ever touched.
What? Wait!
Yeah, I feel bad.
That's awful because that's their take on martial arts and Eastern culture, and it was beautiful. It even had John Cleese as a white guy.
I heard great things about it.
You must play it.
I worry it's a little dated by now. Why don't they make an HD re-release of that and Mass Effect 1?
Because
and Dragon Age Origins.
Jade Empire is perfect the way it is.
Sure, okay. Whatever you say, Aubrey, I believe you.
I love old BioWare stuff, so Origins, Jade Empire.
I love old BioWare stuff too. I look very fondly back on Mass Effect 1 and Dragon Age Origins.
Sneak.
But enough about that. As I do want to bring up too the fact I mentioned this sort of before my summary of the episode. It was a surprisingly dense episode.
Yes, so much going on.
Yeah, a lot of things happened. Admittedly, none of them are huge, impactful things like certain episodes later in the series where like just big things keep happening in an episode. But there was just a lot of things that happened. This story.
Yeah, there was a lot of story to it. I like it.
Yeah.
A lot of characters introduced, and they
didn't feel rushed though.
Yeah, it was well paced. There was one thing that kind of stood out to me. One of the, I think it was George Takei's character, the warden. He calls earthbending a savage art.
Yes.
Which stood out to me. Which means they have this they feel they have this hierarchy of bending. It's like firebending's the best, earthbending is savage, and it's like, why would you think that?
Remember what we learned sort of way later on when we're seeing Roku's backstory, how sort of the quasi-justification the Fire Lord had originally for starting the expansion of the Fire Nation is that he believed that their culture was more advanced than everyone else's. We have so much greatness here, we should share it with the.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they would look down on earthbending.
But it's such a kick-ass, art. Just look at that.
Yeah,
bending
yes, but they can't shoot fire from their hands, so obviously they are peasants.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. Bring me my fire chips. Fire flakes.
Fire flakes.
Just put fire in front of something I don't know.
That's what I like about the Fire Nation. It's just add fire to something, and it's obviously...
And yet we never see a fire sword.
Not yet.
No, I think we saw fire daggers at one point, at some point.
Maybe. Yeah. Back to the humor. Humor was on point at the beginning with the whole nuts
yes.
thing.
I've got nuts and rocks, and a rock that's shaped like a nut. Poor Sokka, he's trying so hard.
And then when they go into the village, they have Aang going to one of the merchants, and he's like, "I'll trade you this hat for some nuts."
He does look good in that hat. I guess it works because they do show up later with 2 hats. So.
Oh yes, that's right.
Those are apparently some rare nuts, maybe.
And then later on, Katara's like, "Well, I'd rather do this than eat nuts," and Sokka's like,
He's like, yeah.
I like humor like that where it's just consistently called back, but not too much.
And nut antics aside, I also wanted to point out Sokka was very helpful and practical this episode.
I think he was, yeah.
He came up with a scheme to get Katara arrested, which is what she wanted, oddly. And he was the one who, was running the schedule for picking Katara up and rescuing her from the prison. Aang was almost sort of kind of like a background character in this episode.
He sort of was. This was Katara's episode. And sadly Haru's episode, but more so Katara's.
Yeah. Aang almost didn't seem interested in the episode half the time. I'll levitate the rock. Okay. I'm just going to hang out behind this rock here.
Yeah, that did seem kind of weird, but at the same time, I guess he figured, well, we'll just rescue Katara after this shenanigans of sorts.
Yeah. Also, too, because Aang, I suppose, has, usually such a zest for life, his personality can run the risk of just taking over any episode he's in.
I think when it comes to their personality traits, it can either teeter to helpful or not so helpful.
They are kids. They can't be expected to make the best decisions all the time.
Oh yeah. Sometimes Katara's optimism can backfire, which we'll see in later episodes, and sometimes Sokka's skepticism also backfires. Same thing with Aang's laid back nature. But then other times all those things can be helpful. Like in this episode, his skepticism where he was like, "Hey, let's not run towards the big boom."
Yeah.
That is reasonable advice.
Yeah.
And his analytical thinking and his planning, those are his strong points.
Yeah, no, Katara, we're not going to leave you on this prison platform. What are you thinking?
Yeah, you're my sister.
Also, we can escape. Why wouldn't we?
Well, I love their fake banter when they were pretending to fight in front of the guards.
Yes.
Hey, look at your ears. They're so...
And that it struck a chord in Sokka. Momo, your ears are big.
Seriously, back off.
Yeah. Siblings, they know where to get you.
Right? Oh, this is why I never fight with my siblings, because I know where they will hit me.
They know all my weaknesses. Let's see. I do want to also make a note that I suppose, other than defending Kyoshi Island sort of from a problem they caused just by being there, this is possibly the first instance, I think, where the gang has had a real positive impact on the conflict as a whole.
Yeah.
They helped free an entire village from Fire Nation imprisonment. And that could conceivably lead to them taking back their entire village and freeing it from the occupation.
Yeah, and, I bet they sort of garner a reputation.
It could start the legend of Avatar Aang. Or more likely Katara, the well-spoken.
Or Sokka, the loud and brash.
The Nut Finder. No, that's a terrible name. I'm trying to think of that. I don't think I have much else to say.
Oh, I like the look of the village. There was something very pleasing about that.
It was very comforting and rustic.
Yeah.
Very earth tones too, which makes sense for an Earth Nation village.
I realized they don't make the same town twice. Each town is very different. At least from what I've observed. I mean, maybe there's templates that they follow.
I mean, they need to make, and part of it's Earth Kingdom, they need to make the Earth Kingdom places look cohesive. Like, I'm sure there would be differences region to region, but it's the same culture.
Yeah.
For overall, so I imagine there'd be some similarities.
Same culture, depending. Yeah, it's the same country.
It's a large thing. I'm sure there are regional differences.
I mean, it's just, so far, this little town is totally different from Kyoshi. This is different from Omashu.
Well, yeah, those were two also very different kind of locales. Omashu is almost kind of built into a mountain.
Yeah,
and,
which is beautiful.
Kyoshi was very kind of, I think, coastal.
Yeah.
Which is why I still think there are possibly some water tribe influences in their culture. Maybe a little cultural cross-pollination.
You think, earthbenders that live closer to volcanoes and stuff like that would have a little bit of Fire Nation-ness to them?
I don't know, because the reason I would think there would be cross-pollination in terms of cultures for Earth Kingdom villages on the coast is because that would give them access to the area where they would find water tribe people.
That's fair.
Fire Nation people don't just appear where there's a volcano. They're not fire-type Pokemon.
You know what?
I mean, I don't think.
What about Roku? We'll not forge ahead or anything,
No.
but
But no, I think there are probably a lot of volcanoes in the Fire Nation, especially since it is sort of based on Japan, and Japan, I believe, is a volcanic series of islands.
Oh yes, that's correct.
Like Hawaii.
Yeah, Japan is Fire Nation is very much Japan, and Earth Nation is very much China.
There's also, I think, a little East Indian mixed in with the Fire Nation a little bit. Or am I thinking of the movie just?
That could be the movie.
Maybe.
The movie was interesting. We'll have to talk about it one day.
One day. But not now. Anyway. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, overall this was a solid episode. It was fun.
Yeah. Nothing amazing, no shocking moments, no really deep character moments.
It had George Takei.
It had George Takei.
And it had Haru, which for some reason they made him a video game character, and I don't think that was...
You're really stuck on this.
It's an unacceptable move. I don't like it. Why?
I think your Haru bias is really showing.
Well, it's just... There's nothing to him.
He's not a terribly deep character. I mean, Jet is more deep than him.
Jet is kind of an important character... side character.
We'll get into that, I suppose, but yes, Haru is not terribly important. It's not. Here's a better example. Suki is, I think, more of a deep character than him.
Sort of, but they don't name her until a season later.
She got named in the episode. I don't think it was ever brought up how she didn't introduce herself. I think we made a point of pointing that out. How does he know her name suddenly?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Anyway, but yeah. Not a particularly deep episode, but a fun and a pretty dense episode, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And funny.
Yes,
and funny.
Lots of good fun from both the heroes and the antagonists.
And
even without Iroh.
And visually pleasing because I love to watch earthbending.
Yes. And I suppose also we got another look at the very kind of industrial style of machinery that when you get Fire Nation machines all around and stuff. You can kind of see it with the boats, like Zuko's kind of metal dreadnought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some background stuff in the episode with Zhao, but here, that was a straight-on, oil platform. It was just all metal and smoke. Not exactly super evil-looking, but certainly not pleasant.
No, it looks kind of gross in the distance. It sort of ruins the visuals. It's oh yeah, here's some beauty of the ocean. Oh, it's just a cold thing in the middle.
For reasons, I guess.
Oh no, they needed it for
well, heat. It's probably cold out on the ocean.
Yeah, and they need to make coal for fuel for the ships, and that's why it's out in the middle of the ocean. I'm
not going to go into that a lot because there's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I gathered. It was oh yeah, they're using their Haru's Miller was oh yeah, they're using our coal mines to fuel the ships, and I'm guessing they have to have it in the middle of the ocean in order to put it in the ships.
So it was more like a supply depot than an actual platform.
I'm not quite too sure what it was.
The logistics of it is not very important. And for once, I'm not going to go into the logistics of something because I just don't care at this point.
Yay!
They needed to have some earth out on this platform in the middle of the ocean.
That's the important part.
And they didn't want to introduce metal bending too early.
Shh! Don't tell anyone.
Yes, metal bending is not a thing because obviously metal is not in any way related to the earth.
Yes.
Moving on. Mm-hmm. Hello.
I give this episode 5 lemurs out of 5.
That's a pretty high rating.
minus the Haru part. It's just
4.
4.9. There you go.
I am not going to be swayed by your big fun smile. I am only going to give this episode a 3.5.
All right, fair enough. You have to remember,
perfectly serviceable.
I like almost all the episodes of this show, so they're all gonna get high ratings.
I simply have a more discerning palate.
Good for you.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he just fake drinking tea
with my pinky extended,
pinky up,
as is only proper. God save the Queen. Anyway, I think that about sums it up. We've done our rating, so I think that's it for this week.
Mm-hmm.
So that was episode 6 of Sky Bisons, Cabbages, and Honor. Thank you for continuing to stick with us on this ridiculous Sky Bison journey of ours. We hope you tune in next time for episode 7.
Bye.
Catchphrase.